And then she said, at the end, she said, well, I think Don's really covered it pretty good. I think she wanted to see it from a non-catholic view.
It is.
Yes.
They came over in 1870.
Alrighty. Well, welcome to our presentation on the town halls of the town of Wheatfield, Niagara County, in the awesome state of New York. Just wanted to actually bring Howard in for a second just to sort of talk about the museum a little bit to anyone who that's happened to be here that isn't too familiar with the museum, or for our YouTube audience out there, or whoever might see our video today on this. So Howard, explain just a little bit who we are here.
Good. The North Tonawanda History Museum, we have been in this location for going on 5 years now. The building itself was a bowling alley and bar on Oliver Street, go figure that. The room they're sitting in now is a community room. We use it for presentations and for fundraising. And we have behind it, right through the double doors there, is our reading room, and that's open to the public at any time. You're welcome to come in and sit and read and research. Beyond that is the exhibit gallery proper, and it's laid out that it tells North Tonawanda's story in time, beginning with the last ice age and going up through maybe the 1960s or 70s. And we've got some other things on display that transcend time, like military and arts, scouting, and sports. We're going to be closed to the public in February, for most of February, to redo some of the exhibits that we have and do a little maintenance to the building. We have a used book sale coming up beginning the last Saturday of February and continuing Monday through Friday up through the first Saturday of March. And then we'll be reopened again for things. We're in process of booking things, probably one a month, presentations of one kind or another, either here or off-site. So stay tuned, look for the information, wherever you found information for today. And we'll come on back. Thank you.
Absolutely, and thank you very much to this museum for everything that is done for our community and for me in particular. I'm a proud member, and I'm also Town of Wheatfield's town historian. And so this is the Town Halls of Wheatfield, from schoolhouse to people's house. So what is a town hall? In local government, a town hall, a civic center, guild hall, or a municipal building is a chief administrative building of a city, town, or other municipality. It usually houses the town or village council, its associated departments, and their employees. It also functions as the base of the mayor of a city, town, borough, county, or shire, and of the executive arm of the municipality, if one exists directly or distinctly from the council. As symbols of local government, city and town halls have distinctive architecture, and the buildings may have great historical significance. For example, Lewiston Village Hall. Town, city, or village hall buildings may also serve as cultural icons that symbolize their cities. By the way, guys, I have a book, a version of this presentation, so if you ever want to go back to a slide and reread some information or look a little more closely at certain details, I do have that to pass around by request. By convention, until the middle of the 19th century, a town hall was a single large open chamber or hall formed an integral part of the building housing of the council. The hall may be used for council meetings and other significant events. The terms council chambers and municipal buildings or variants may be used locally in preference to town hall, if no such large hall is present within the building. Of course, in our early history, in many parts of Western New York and elsewhere, town halls wherever the biggest building was. It could be a Grange Hall, it could be a church, it could be a schoolhouse, for example, and that was quite common. A meeting was a meeting was a meeting. It could even be in someone's home. As long as it's recorded as an official meeting, it's a town hall, the town center, in some cases early on. In many cases, town halls serve not only as buildings for government functions, but also have facilities for various civic and cultural activities. Now, town records of early New England are scarce, leading to debate about the origin of the concept of a town hall meeting. The most common interpretation is that it was adapted from local vestry meetings held in the 17th century England, which are responsible for financial decisions of the parish church. I mean, of course, the churches going further back were often nucleuses of reading and writing and just bare education. The English settlers created parish-based governments modeled after their experience with these local meetings, with town selectmen analogs to vestry church wardens. So a lot of that centrality around the church. In colonial New England, there was very little separation between church and town governments, but town meetings continued to play a secular role after the disestablishment of state churches and form the core of government for New England towns today. Various municipal offices, well into the 20th century here, were often maintained in office holders' homes or businesses, even emergency service calls, tax collections, clerking, court documentation, and assessments. I mean, I have 4,000 cards that make up the 1957 tax assessment rolls in our town, very valuable source of information. And I don't think the cards were eventually stored in his house, but he had his office in his own home on Connecting Boulevard in Wheatfield. So in 1831, visit to New England, the political philosopher Alexander de Tocqueville visited several townships in Massachusetts, remarking that the first volume of Democracy in America, a very famous publication, in 1835, that town governments in New England appeared to show greater political independence than French communes, even shires, city-states, or other municipal bodies in Europe. Government closest to the people is what he was basically summarizing in that book. De Tocqueville believed that town meetings, with direct power given to attending residents, trained citizens for the participation. And it's a pedagogical connotation there. Citizens for participation in broader democratic society, writing that, quote, the institutions of a township are to freedom what primary schools are to science. They make them taste its peaceful employ and habituate them to making use of it. See also John Locke's writings on this, John Locke being a major influence to Thomas Jefferson. It is a setting for the theory of deliberative democracy, a political, civic, and pedagogical idea of empowered participation in which thoughtful deliberation between all participating individuals can coexist with a sense of engaged citizenship and responsibility for solving local problems. Reminding ourselves, by the way, of Magna Carta, the documents that are delineations of authority from a central authority. So local, actually the back of Magna Carta is a little mention like being charged or being judged by juries of your peers, rather than some central authority. So it kind of goes all the way back to that, a local focus of justice. In this, it is an element or second division of the social contract mentioned by Jean-Jacques Rousseau. So that's the philosophy behind the idea of town halls. This townhouse of Marlborough, Vermont was built in 1822 to be used for town meetings, which had previously been held in private homes. It is still in use today in the civic community. So Wheatfield becomes a town. The name derives from commentaries which include the fact that the town was known as an excellent place for growing wheat. On May 20th of 1836, the town was officially formed out of the towns of Niagara and Cambria. On June 6th, the convened board of trustees met the number 7 one-room schoolhouse, which, like many other schoolhouses, doubled as community centers and courts. A farmer, N.M. Ward, whose house actually used to exist essentially on the corner of Lockport Road and Ward Road. His place apparently existed on the southwestern corner there, where that kind of modern house is now. Apparently he lived right there. He was the first supervisor. Another man, Louis Payne, of North Tonawanda fame, would be another supervisor in 1847 and actually other terms. Where he resided was at the corner of Wheatfield and Payne, and that roughly formed the boundary essentially between the village of North Tonawanda and Wheatfield proper. And so that's why he was supervisor of our town even into the 1870s. That formal city arrangement had yet to expand to incorporate where he lived. Wheatfield was the last township to be found in Niagara County. It celebrated sesquicentennial, say that name proper, right? Sesquicentennial, right? 150th birthday in 1986. It will hold its bicentennial in 2036. I've come up with a couple of names for how we might be able to celebrate that eventually. Last but not least, or saving the best for last, kind of phrasing. It's cute. You never know. Now, this is the list of town halls. We've had 3 of them. The first town hall at 2956 Lockport Road, the number 7 one-room schoolhouse. It was built around 1832, essentially, just a few years before the actual first town board meeting. And it existed until about 1989, when it was unfortunately demolished for something else, a home that sits there now. The second town hall was at 2884 Niagara Falls Boulevard. It was formerly the Buffalo Falls Boulevard at that time when it was originally put together, and existed from 1901 to the present day. It is now a Revive salon and spa, hair spa center, and also a home allegedly for ghosts. The third town hall exists at 2800 Church Road and opened in 1973 and exists to the present, of course. Now, these are the various town supervisors. I'm not going to list them all, but if you happen to notice some of the names, or if you want to focus on some in the book here, multiple supervisors served on a rotating basis, it seemed at times, because the office of supervisor was not too big of a deal, it was just passed around. But we had a number of very important names here, among them Mr. Payne, but also very other important figures in the town that included names like Millville and Stieg and Greinert and so forth. Now this is, I'm not going to, obviously you're not going to be able to see this at this focus, but it's in the book. This is the timeline of events of our various town halls that we also have available for you to look at later on. So in 1836, a few fun facts. There are 24 stars in the flag of the United States, with the 25th being added in this year, which was Arkansas. William IV was King of Great Britain, and slavery had only just been abolished throughout the empire 3 years earlier. Only a few veterans of the American Revolution were still alive in this period. Simon Kenton, American frontiersman, revolutionary militia general, he dies in this year. He was born in 1755. Andrew Jackson was only the 7th president of the United States. William L. Macy was the New York State governor. The Texas Revolution and independence struggle occurred during the siege of the Alamo. This was at the time of the Alamo when our town was being put together. The first numbered U.S. patent, one after filing 9,957 unnumbered patents, is granted to John Ruggles for improvements to railroad steam locomotive ties. United States presidential election, 1836, Martin Van Buren defeats William Henry Harrison and 3 other Whig candidates. William Henry Harrison would come back around later on to be the shortest reigning president ever for just 1 month. He unfortunately caught a cold during his longest inaugural address. He's only known for one record. He had a huge 2-hour-long inaugural address, got a cold, caught pneumonia, and passed away. So, the last tract of land, tagged land in Western New York, was sold by the original Holland Line Company of Batavia, New York. And then the Holland Line Company ceases to exist as a entity after that. All right, so this is our first town hall. This picture would have been taken about 1950 or so, and shows a frontal view of it. It had already been decommissioned as a schoolhouse at about this point. The last classes were held at about the time this photo was taken. So somewhere between 52 and 55 were the last classes held in this building. You could see the warming or entrance vestibule. There would have been areas for coats and other provisions to be hung up. On their way in, there would have been probably at least one potbelly stove in the middle of the room, the main room right there. And going further back in there, you would have had a kind of like other schoolhouses, you would have had a raised pulpit, kind of like a church, right? This is a civic church, a civic gathering in that way. All the attention goes right to the teacher. That teacher would have had to have known many subjects and would have accommodated many grades in one room. Some people, and most people, went on foot. I just interviewed a lady who said that she used to have to walk to not this schoolhouse, but another one for school, and only after a certain grade level were they actually bused to a North Tonawanda school over here. So even by the 1950s or so, that was still very common. Now this is the fella in charge of that particular schoolhouse back in at that period. We're talking in the 1875 school year. C.B. Edwards was a teacher there. And we have a number of familiar names that, again, it's kind of blurry here, but we have a number of very important and familiar names like Zimmerman and Barnum and Maurer and so forth. Yeah, and he looks pretty young, right? I mean, whether we're male or female, our teachers learned and practiced at a pretty young age. Now, this is a photo of our board member, our former board member from the Das Haus Museum, Richard Williams. And he is pictured on the front lawn of his relative's house. Which one is that, Don?
That would be the corner of Lockport and Ward.
Or Hoover, right?
No,
Not Hoover,
Lockport and Ward.
Further down the way from it, going to the east.
It would be the southeast corner. You can still kind of see where that building. It's now, the front part is enclosed, but it used to be gas pumps.
Right in the front there,
that
yeah.
You could drive, I believe you could actually drive under the canopy there.
Yeah, this is the next intersection to the east, though, is where the schoolhouse was.
Oh,
though. Yeah, that one over there.
That was
Yeah, the Williams house there. The fellow who lived in that house, by the way, was our last Civil War veteran of the town of Wheatfield, by the way. That was his relative. He's on the front yard of that house. Now, I've tried to enhance it as best as I can. But just over his shoulder and looking to the northeast there, you can see the schoolhouse right in there. That's a blow up, if you will, of that image. And there he is standing in front of that. Now, this is another view of it from the town assessment records from 1957. Notice how it's shuttered over. And we see an old propane or oil tank, I think, right there on the side. This is the house that's next door to the former site. Now that's still there, and that's how it appeared. Obviously, no longer in service. According to the assessment record, it was a schoolhouse. So that's 1957 again, shut down at that point. Now this great photo was taken, I want to say, around 1977. This is from the next round of assessments, and it's a great broadside view and the clearest and best photo we have of what was once our first town hall. And note the number at the bottom here. A lot of people ask about these numbers when I share these, and that's the lot's SBL number, or the underlying number beneath the address. So you have your house address, but you also have this larger, longer number that preceded that, essentially. And an SBL number can have multiple future addresses on that, and it's broken up, and you get a new number, a new SBL number with your address once it's broken up. Complicated tech stuff, but that's what was sticking outside of the car of the fellow who took this picture. And as you can tell, the notation, as everything was updated periodically on this card through 1981, the notation says demolished. Someone wrote that in blue ink right there. One of my predecessors, Chuck Cederman, Charles D. Cederman, tried to save this building in the late 1980s, but he was sadly rebuffed. And someone else had bought it, and he basically says, I'm putting a house there. Whatever. We wanted to make money. So, unfortunately, we were not able to save that. Now, here is the next town hall. This was built in 1901 to 1902, and this building still exists today on the south east corner of Niagara Falls Boulevard, or what was then Buffalo Falls Boulevard, and Ward Road, and 3 buildings back from what's now the current 7-Eleven. Back then, when this was put up, Kroll's Tavern and Store, an inn, periodic inn, was on that corner. And then you had St. Johnsburg Fire Hall, and then this. And here we have this excellent photo, and it appears in our flyers for this event, are 2 kids that are on Sawyer's Creek. Note how close they are to the building at the time. This is before the creek was adjusted and moved eventually by mid-century, and when Niagara Falls Boulevard itself was just 2 lanes at the time, and had basically cobblestones that were laid down by the Wurlitzer Company. It was the first finished road of that kind going through the town, because the company itself wanted to make sure its products and customers were coming to it in one piece, rather than dealing with weird mud holes and all that. So,
Question.
yeah, we still have some of those cobblestones today, actually.
It's on Falls Boulevard.
Yeah, Niagara Falls Boulevard on the south side.
Now, is the boulevard just in front of the
Yes, yes.
Okay.
It's right in front of it. And the first kid, we do not know what his identity is. But I think I've been corrected as to who the second one is. It's one of the Kroll children, actually, who lived presumably at the corner. There was a little house that was married next to the Kroll's Tavern, and that's where he presumably comes out from to play with his friend on the ice here. And it's a really great shot, anyways, because the first kid they're both smiling and they're both stopping for the camera. It's a very, if you look at the photo a little more clearly with the book here, you've got this incredibly wicked grin on his face that looks like, winter fun. Now, this was sent to me by someone living in the town who actually owns this. This is an original corner sign saying Ward Road and Buffalo Falls Boulevard. I've sort of begged him to will it to me in case he had. But the best he's got right now is just a photo, which is fine. And this it shows you what was literally on that corner at the time that building was put together. Very different time. And of course, the more that this area gained more of a identity business-wise, the more they realized that Niagara Falls Boulevard was more appropriate a name. Now, this photo was taken in 57. This is the tax assessment photo again from that time. This is Town Hall as it appeared. Note in the back, the set of garages, that was your highway garage. That was the highway department at the time. A number of trucks and other vehicles were kept in there until the mid-50s when the current highway garage for the town of Wheatfield was built on Ward Road. But that's where you had to put all your stuff back then. Now, I'm about to show you a picture of the town board as it appeared in 1962. Now, picture from left to right. Town Justice John Culver, Supervisor Stanley Brzezinski, Town Justice Fred Lemke, and Town Attorney Harry Schmidt. And I'll go back and forth. Oh, here we go. Henry Schmidt. Pictured back row left to right, Councilman Richard Lemke, Councilman Martin Devontier, and Town Clerk Winston Mahler. Of the town councilmen that were in this photo, Mr. Mahler was the last one alive at the time. I did see this photo and was able to identify who was in the photo. Now, there's one exception, Town Justice Fremart Furchin and John Culver, Town Justice. They're not in the photo. And this is the town board as it appeared in 1972, just before their move to the newer town hall. So we have all of our town board members at the time. Of the people in this photo, Miss Diet Furchin, who was Diet Tollner at the time, she wasn't married yet, is right here. And Mr. James Hoyer, they're the only ones from this photo still around today. And in the middle here, of course, is Stanley Brzezinski, longtime supervisor of the town of Wheatfield from 1959 to 1979. And he presided over a lot of change in the town during that period. Now, this is the atmosphere out of which a newer town hall was being considered. Wheatfield prepares to enter the boom period, or essentially this outgrowth. It's an after effect also of the Bell Aerospace Factory. We see showing that very prominently in this photo, in this page here. And we see the town board again as it was composed in 1958 at a table within the original town hall. Above their heads here is an old-fashioned photo from around 1908 showing a town board, composition at that time. That picture is in our newer town hall above the stairway. And there's probably other things in there that were moved over to the newer town hall that's still there today. This is the last meeting in the old town hall in 1973. And I think the town historian at that time took this picture. Look at how informal this is compared to the dais and the setup we have now in the newer town hall. When Stanley Brzezinski was up on the podium in 1998 for the 25th anniversary of the building's construction, which is a nice venue. You'll see some pictures of that. He actually was up there in the video, shows him talking about what it was like to have meetings in here. Yeah, he says, yeah, when people had to use the bathroom, they had to go past and around us to get to the rooms right behind and then come back out periodically during the meeting. So he's seeing all these people coming in and being interrupted. because it was, yeah. And that's another photo of the guys in deliberation. Yeah, so that's a nice series of photos there showing our last meeting. And this is the second town hall, one of the last photos with the sign still on it. This would have been, I would say, 1973, 74. You can see that the sign is still up there, probably 73, just after it closed. There used to be a more complete cupola up there, but I guess it must have been roofed off at some point. And here's St. Johnsburg Fire Hall. Now, this would have become a couple other things since the kids were on the ice photo, right? This would have become a couple of other businesses and would become the music store at about this time, Alder Creek Music. In the background here is the former Schulmeister store. Am I getting that name right, Don? Right, Schulmeister store. That's now a private home. It would have been a private home at this point, but that's another historic building in the town that you can see right past all this. And finally, this nice broadside view of the original building. Shortly after this picture was taken, within a few years, it would become a couple of other businesses, but is famously known today as the Revive Hair Salon and Spa.
But next to it is Alder Creek?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, yeah. Right to the pictures, right.
Yeah.
Right in there.
Oh, wow.
Still a nice stout building today. Okay, so and this is a nice article from 1974 when the town officially put the building up for sale. Although when this picture was taken of the front of it, it was probably a few years before. You can tell it's not as overgrown. You can the bushes there. So this is probably a file photo that they stuck in there. But yeah, it was for sale, and they went through the process. And Paul Gilmore of Lewiston submitted a bid of $7,777.11. 7-Eleven. Do you think that's a little bit of a precursor there to what would go on later on? This is 1977. Yeah, still not claimed. But as I said, it's doing just fine today. You can tell the SBL number written on along the bottom there for that assessment year. Because at that point, Town Hall, the former Town Hall, was no longer an untaxable building. It was private property, so it could be taxed, so they took a picture. That's the view of it now. And also, just to round it up, you can kind of get a good view now as to what that intersection used to look like versus today. There's the former Siemendorf house right there. Town Hall, St. Johnsburg. The one door, roll-up door, has got a window in it. They modified it, of course, for the business. The other roll-up door is still there, and of course the Wilson Farms, now 7-Eleven. The former Kroll's Tavern was demolished about 1980. Now, in 1972, when they were thinking about doing a new town hall, this was the original layout that they were kind of brainstorming about and putting down in preliminary sketches. So what we see here on the corner of Maple and Church Roads, you've got the town hall as it sits today. I think they were pretty solid about where that was going to go, but they had other ideas for this property. They had bought the Mull Farm from the Mull family, and it covered a large area. And they were going to put something more like a town center, which is actually a subject that's been coming up in the last several years, and has been accommodating things like the community center and the youth center lately. Well, it was just town hall, but they contemplated a little league and a baseball zone. A swimming pool was supposed to go here, a bathhouse, obviously a maintenance building, a tennis court, an archery range, football fields, and a picnic zone or grove was planned for the site. Some of the things eventually would come here, others no. Archery, though. Archery was a big thing back in the day. I think NCCC, Niagara County Community College, still has archery courses. Of course, we had rifle courses back then, too. So this is the preliminary sketch at the time. This was the concept art for it. And it essentially resembles what we have today. But what was at the site before? As I said, it was a mall farm or a mall farm. There were several mall farms in the community. I think at least 2 or 3 separate farms in the name of mall. And this is at the corner of Maple and Church Road, or looking southward on Maple. Here's Church Road coming in to make a curve to connect. As you're going to Town Hall today on the East Road, coming in, you would be going right through this fellow's house, right through his front room. And that's what this looked like by 1965. The house itself, the complex, was built around 1870, thereabouts. And that's what was there before. Here's another close-up view of the old farmhouse. You can tell it's sinking a bit, you know. It would have had a wooden foundation, I would say, right, Don? Because your
Yeah,
family
it was
lived in that
really-
area.
I was in it not that long before it was, they did a controlled burn out at the fire company did for practice. And it had sunk quite a lot. A lot of the floor was just dirt at that point.
It had a wooden foundation, I think, around the
Well, it
sides.
might
sort
probably set on split field
of.
stone.
Splitsfield,
but
yeah.
as the rest of the old buildings around here, the Prussians didn't anticipate the frost level was slightly different than Prussia, and it would every year with the thaw, the stone would sink a little bit, so that your bottom beams ended up on the ground and started to rock. That's why you can see the higher parts kind of pulling away from the lower part was the kitchen.
Where a lot of the heavier equipment was.
And you can
for example,
see
yeah.
in that photo, you can see the church pew sitting that we have over at the museum sitting there. That came from the odd church in Berkeley that's no longer there, Trinity. And I remember John and Yulee Mall sitting on that. So when I was a little boy, they were friends of my great-grandparents.
And
then he became quite ill and was bedridden. And then later on, their son Rudolph lived there by himself, and the house deteriorated so much that the building around the corner from the town hall on Maple, the first building, that was a brother to Rudolph, and they convinced him to move in into their home.
Mm-hmm. And thank you for bringing up the pew, and I missed the church. But yeah, you can actually see this church pew today at the Das Haus Museum, the same one that's sitting on that front porch right here in this photo. Yeah, it's just one of those sort of romantic, sort of sad images. But, you know, time passes. So here we have the town council at the time with the groundbreaking shovel. You can see the shovel today inside the town hall's lobby on the top shelf there. And this is the official groundbreaking photo. And this is some of the town council